Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and this is my weekend review, and it's really going to be focusing on the television that I watched in the past week, as some of the films that I've watched streaming or on Netflix DVD were actual films from 2020 that I would like to talk about. So we're going to focus on the TV shows and talking about The Outsider, which the most recent episode this past Sunday, it started picking up the tension, it started picking up some movement in the story, and there's only 2 episodes left, so I'm really hoping that it really comes to an impactful finale, because this is supposed to be a mini-series if I'm not mistaken, so it's not like setting up for season 2. And Cynthia Erivo and Ben Mendelsohn yet again both had some interesting things to do in this episode, and it felt like a solid payoff to the kind of cliffhanger that we got from the previous episode. I got to watch Visible out on television, the new docuseries that was released on Apple TV+, and I thought it was a really, really important documentary, especially because coming from a white man who's never had to worry about the fact that when I look at a television show, there are people that I could directly relate to and can represent me, because, most television shows were written by white men. And I thought it was really moving and passionate, the ways that a lot of the people in this docuseries were able to talk about those moments that really meant something to them when they got to see a lesbian on television, or a gay man on television, a gay person of color on television. And it did a really good job of painting a picture of the era while also focusing on the actual topics that it was going after, along with showing emotion and feeling a connection to it. And I think it did a really good job of doing that, and I was really impressed by this. And especially after the launch of Apple TV Plus, I've been a lot more interested in what's been coming out since that initial release, because also got to finish the first season of Little America. And this is such a great little collection of great stories that honors immigrants and shows the best sides of immigrants, because in a lot of conversations now we only hear the bad. And almost the vast majority of people who live in America now, their ancestors got here because they were immigrants. And getting to see these emotional and fun and affecting stories in these little snippets, and they're so well put together, and there's so many of them that I really, really enjoyed, whether it was a whole entire episode about a French woman at this kind of event for a week where you couldn't say anything, and all the fun things that they did. And some of them were just fun, but had that emotional impact. And it's a great show, and Apple TV is really coming to its own with some of its original content. Got to watch the most recent episode of Miracle Workers, which this is a fun episode because Daniel Radcliffe's character, who's this prince who has all of this, starts becoming an intern at the shit shoveler, and it was fun seeing him being incompetent about being able to pick up feces with a shovel and stuff like that, and really trying to get a sense of it's like that entitlement. And it was really funny how it was based around that. Bob's Burgers finally came back after a long period of time, and definitely the highlights of this episode were Bob and Linda going to the gym. And I think my favorite scene in this most recent episode was the morning after. They went working out for the first time and couldn't get out of bed, and they were in so much pain and making weird noises. It was just hilarious. Ben Schwartz was in this episode, and that was fun. And all these weird, awkward relationships between the older kids. So Tina is trying really, really hard to be like a big brother, big sister kind of role to this younger girl. And it had a fun Dead Poet Society reference that I wasn't expecting. And it was a fun episode. It's great Bob's Burgers, because Bob's Burgers is great. Then I watched the first season of High Fidelity on Hulu, and I really enjoyed the film with John Cusack. And I appreciated how they took the perspective of it to a young woman of color in Brooklyn, and you got to follow her around. And Zoe Kravitz was great in this, and the two supporting characters who play her friends are so great. One's just like a grumpy, self-loathing gay man, and you get a whole episode dedicated to him too, which was fun. And her big sassy black friend, and the thing is, they could easily be caricatures, but you get enough of their actual character, they're flesh out human beings, and you get to see all these different aspects of relationships, the awkwardness, and different kinds of relationships. That one relationship where you break up, you get back together again, you break up, you get back together again, over and over and over and over again. And I've known people who are in relationships like that. And it's really feels so organic and fun and moving. And I really enjoyed this show a lot, so I'd highly recommend it. Diary of a Future President. So I really enjoyed this show. I was surprised when I looked at the ratings on Rotten Tomatoes, and like critics are really enjoying it, but audiences are a bit mixed on it. I think it's a nice little show, and this most recent episode, her dealing with being in in-school suspension and trying to get past that idea of what your reputation leads on and who you actually are, and trying to differentiate that. And I thought it was really meaningful, because I think that's a powerful message for kids, not to just listen to all the BS that people say about each other, but actually get to know people. The most recent episode of Avenue 5 probably was my favorite, because everybody just didn't give a shit. And they have a party, and everyone gets drunk and do all these ridiculous things, and it just goes crazy over the top. And I think it was a really fun episode that really clicked a lot better than some of the episodes for me. But in summation, it was a pretty good week in TV shows, and some cool new shows to watch on Apple TV and Hulu, and I'm sure I'll have a lot more to talk about next week. But thank you as always for tuning in. If you want to talk about any of these shows, leave a comment below. But thank you as always for supporting your Wasteland reviewer.